We're back in the studio and we're going to do a little challenge. It's just a little food porn where there are a few different ingredients that I'm going to throw out on the table and I'm going to see what I get. This is a nice little kind of exercise for my brain. It's all about experimentation. I'm going to play with different lighting modifiers, different power packs, and I'm just going to look at food and come up with an idea. Like the first thing that I'm going to do is play with the Swiss chard, which if you look at Swiss chard, in fact, I'll go grab a leaf for you in a second. It's this really crazy, funky stuff. It has wild shape. It goes in all sorts of different directions. So one of the things I thought I would try to do with this very untamed object is actually give it structure. So I stacked a bunch of it up in kind of an alternating pattern of color, because this is rainbow chard. So it's yellow, it's red, it's green, and it's kind of bordering on white in places too. Stacked some of it up and ran my knife long ways down the entire thing in order to give this wild shaped thing a cut edge. So I want to kind of play with this idea of stacking and moving around this cut edged piece. So let's see what we get. It's something a little bit different. I haven't tried this before. I just thought I'd play with it. I think this is a really good exercise for you to do, and it's something I've done multiple times. I go into a store, I see something that's interesting, and I just make myself shoot it. And I don't necessarily know when I'm going to have the right idea for it. It just kind of hits me. So right now what I'm doing is playing with this extension tube. I'm working with it on my 50 millimeter to see if I like it at all. All right, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to shoot with my brown color. I've gone back to my Para 88, which, as we've talked about many times before, is my go-to light. I love this Para 88. I'm just going to use it with some diffusion. I need to get a trigger system on it, but I threw some Roscoe. This is the 3008. I've clipped it to the front of it, and I've got the light extended all the way down, so it's not at its most direct, it's actually at its most diffuse for this particular modifier. Well, let's see what we get. All right, very dark, very moody, kind of interesting. Absolutely needs some fill light going on there. Now I want to run down this thing a little bit more. I want to see more of its length, because this stuff is kind of funky. And this lens might be the wrong way to go, because I'm so macro with it. All right, let's get a little fill light. All right, got a longer card. We love you, Blake. Don't know where that came from. It's kind of funny. Da, 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 da. Whoa. There's so much ambient light, it's really hard to tell what's happening. All right. Kind of interesting. I don't think it's quite there yet. This is, this is just kind of a simple ingredient shot and trying to make something a little bit different. Let me see my crop. I got no crop on there. All right. So let's go down first of all and apply my crop. One of the things that I'm doing here is I'm going very quickly. I want to get several shots done today in this food porn challenge that we're going for. kind of interesting. Actually, I think I like that. The one thing I don't like is the fact that I've got so many highlights on the back side of the Swiss chard. It's really blowing out. So I'm going to throw my polarizing lens on here, or my polarizer on here, and make a change. All right, so we're putting on a polarizer in order to get rid of that highlight, which means we have to up our power by a couple of stops because this is going to suck up a bunch of power. And the nice thing is with a polarizer, I can control the amount of highlight I want to take away or keep. So let's take a quick look at this. Because this stuff is so textural, the highlight is not going to completely go away, but you can see the difference in those two images. I think I want a little bit of that highlight, so I'm going to bring it back just a skosh. Yeah, I kind of like that. And you'll notice one thing, what I'm actually doing with this light, I'm feathering it. So I've got it positioned almost, it's not quite directly above, but it's pretty high. And really, the bottom third of the light is what's catching here. The rest of it's shooting over, and then I'm catching that with this fill card, and I'm bouncing it back in order to give the fill side a strong, solid amount of light. This is not something where I want to create a ton of shadow. I've naturally got a lot of shadow because it's a dark surface and this stuff is stacked pretty high. So I'm intentionally doing this where I'm actually shooting the center portion of my light is going over my subject so it can catch the top of the card and I can bounce it back down in. Simple little trick, something I do with some regularity. I kind of like that. It's a very simple shot. It's just ingredients. It's something different. It's kind of cool. All right, I like that. It's something simple. I want to move on. Maybe I'm going to play with this a little bit more and see what I get. It might fall apart, but I'm going to experiment with it just a little bit. So let's see what happens if I take these guys and put them on their side and let them fall. That's kind of interesting. It's kind of weird. Now again, I'm being really loose. I'm just allowing myself, to find something I think is interesting, like this. That's kind of cool. Wow. Huh. Very different. Let's get some light back in here. If you see this leaf on the left side, I'm going to use this handy dandy pointer. Right there, that's what really caught my eye in camera. First, the whole graphic nature of this, kind of looking down the cut of these two piles was kind of interesting, but then that leaf really caught my eye. So I want to get a little bit of light in there, which I like. Now want to get a little bit of light in the base portion. So I'm going to grab another white card. I want to keep the color consistent, which is why I'm not going to use silver or anything else. I'm going to get another white card. I'm going to try to quickly push a little light in here, and then we're going to see if that's not done. I like it. It's cool. So this is where I'm going to use one of those little curved cards, and I'm going to use it to kind of snake some light right in there. Going to make sure that card is not in camera. Let's hold this up. You can see that little bit of difference, it just kind of popped in there. And I like it. Let's explore this a little bit. I feel like it's interesting, but it's not quite there in terms of composition. I want to get it a little bit more interesting. So I'm gonna play. I'm just gonna move around here a hair. And what I'm doing is I'm turning my background, because right now the lines are going too directly down the middle. They're not quite perfect. It's almost like I really need to make it 100% symmetrical, really spend the time to make it symmetrical, or I need to mess it up a little bit. And I'm gonna opt for the messed up route, because I think it'll be nicer. So looking through the lens, I can bring this in to the point where I see it. Now that's kind of cool. I like that a little bit more. I think I just have to move my camera a little bit. I'm going to slide down here. This is where having a phoba stand like this, camera stand in studio, is really nice, because I can make very small movements very precisely. Can't do that as much with a tripod. It's very doable with a tripod, but just not with the same kind of precision. I like that. I think that's much nicer. Let's go just a little bit more in terms of pushing this composition. What I'm doing now is I'm actually tilting my camera to get a little bit more of that angle going, a little bit more of the dynamic feel to it. Because it's starting to get that, but I want to round these guys towards me a little bit, which you can see I just did. So the set of leaves on the left, I actually rounded up in the camera frame by tipping the camera the opposite direction, and I like that. I think it gives a little bit more of a dynamic feel. Number one, I've got that real red piece of the rainbow shard coming dead from the corner, and it's leading the eye right in the middle. It kind of goes up to the spot that's really in focus, and then it comes back in and it goes down across the whole thing. There's only one other thing I see, a little bit of a piece of something on that stem I want to clean up, and then I'll be good. Okay. This is going to help. I didn't notice that for the first couple of shots. In fact, it was probably in, see that little bit of green go away? Now the eye helps to lead down even further. It's nicer. The last thing I want to do, I don't like what's going on right up here. There's just this little leaf that's kicking in. I think it's kind of ugly. I like the way that channel's going down, so I'm going to snip this off. And pop one more shot. Not yet. That's not totally gone. All right, I think we're going to like this. A couple different unusual shots of Swiss chard in just a matter of a moment or two. Boom. Oh yeah, much, much better. I like it. This is a really cool highlight. The eye is leading, it goes all the way down here. These veins are really interesting. I've got a nice focal plane that's kind of making this curve, almost smile right here in the middle. I like it, that one's done. And this is really pretty down here too. All right, so just to kind of recap what we're doing here. Simple little quick hits on doing different types of food photography using ingredients. With the last couple things that we've been playing with here with the Swiss chard is working with the polarizer. Remember, I've got my Para 88. It's got Roscoe Lux diffusion on it, which is the 3008, one of my go-to. I use 3010, 3008 all the time. They're really beautiful pieces of diffusion. It's lifted up, kind of skimming over the Swiss chard. The bottom third of the light is really hitting the food. The top 2/3 is going over, and I'm using my fill card to pop it back in. This is really reflective, really shiny stuff. So I use the leaf polarizer to knock down glare, and I'll give you a quick little shot. Right here, this is where I've knocked it off. Let's just move the polarizer a little bit, and you'll see the highlights start to come in. You see that? See that? Now it's kind of, in some ways it's kind of nice. I can really control it. With this particular image, I don't like having all those highlights because they just, you can see how distracting they are. They start to go blue. They're just really not that interesting. Ooh, like look at that. That's letting all the highlight come back, and it's really screaming. The reason it's doing that is because I'm backlighting. Again, I like that form, you know, to have the light move from the back to the front to really give the food form. It helps give it shape. It looks at it in a very sculptural way. But something like that is terrible. I mean, the eye is going to go to those highlights, and you're never going to settle on one particular place. Your eye is literally going to swim in all that stuff. So using the polarizer is the great way to go. One tip that I'll give you if you use a system like this where it's a clip-on, you basically have a ring that mounts onto the front of the lens. And for this polarizing filter system, or this compendium hood system, I have different size rings for all my lenses. They come in, you know, 55, 72, whatever it may be for your lens, you can get them. It just clips right on the front. And this controls the gate that allows it to lock on. And one thing I've learned to do with it is use this like a clock. So when I'm making adjustments, I can say, okay, you know, if I'm looking where my camera is, high noon is pretty good. Or maybe it's more at 2 o'clock, or even down here at 3 o'clock. So you can use this to help you remember where your polarizer needs to be, and then you can make little adjustments as you go. Little trick, and let's go on to the next one. Let's figure out something else to shoot.